Tonight on CFTK-TV, the Terrace RCMP have made yet another drug bust. The federal government continues to counter against U.S. tariffs, and Canadians head down south to help contain the California wildfires.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Hello, I'm Damien Smith, and thank you for joining us here on CFTK-TV. Well, the all-native basketball tournament is coming to Prince Rupert from February 8th to the 15th. As teams gear up, tournament organizers have put out a warning for those involved. Here's Jayleen Matthews with CFTK-TV.
When you search for the all-native basketball tournament, several pages come up. However, the only page verified to belong to the tournament is the one at the top, with 12,000 followers and over 300 reviews. As for the rest of the pages, organizers of the tournament wrote on their own page that it's come to their attention that there is a scam all-native basketball tournament Facebook page, and they've been trying to flag it as fraud. Commenters added that there are not only scam pages, but scam people as well, who are attempting to add people who are connected to the tournament as friends. Tournament organizers wrote that the scammers have been corresponding with some teams and have actually gotten tournament fees out of one of them. Organizers are asking for the public's assistance to report any unofficial pages or people and say that money should only be sent to the email addresses referenced in the tournament's invitation package. For CFTK TV News in Terrace, I'm Jayleen Matthews.
And in more long-term news, the town of Smithers posted on their Facebook page disclosing they had sold some vacant land to the Northern Health Authority. The land in question is said to be located between Alfred Avenue and First Avenue, as well as Alberta Street and Vancouver Street, so that can be used as a long-term care facility. The facility's construction is reportedly expected to be started by 2028 and then be fully finished sometime in 2030. Now, earlier today in Terrace, the local RCMP placed an article on their website that gave out the details on their latest drug bust of note. At the end of last week, officers found a man believed to be a drug trafficker that was connected to another incident walking around, and he was arrested right there for trafficking a controlled substance. The man's backpack was then searched, and some of the items discovered in it included cash, several cell phones, bear spray, a baton, a loaded imitation firearm, some drug packaging items, suspected fentanyl, cocaine, meth, in addition, some other pharmaceuticals that were not identified publicly. The Terrace RCMP are set to send the investigation results that they accrued to the BC Prosecution Services so that they can consider more charges. And a weekly report from the Terrace RCMP also talked about the most notable calls that they got to begin in January. One call saw police respond to a vehicle rollover incident near Gilligow Street. The female driver of the vehicle was arrested for seemingly being impaired by alcohol after showing some telling signs and having an odor of liquor on her. The arrest occurred after she refused a breathalyzer test, and she was eventually released with a future court date. Now, moving on to federal stories, the Canadian government is looking at using bargaining chips such as energy supply to counter with their own tariffs against the United States. We'll pass it on to Jeremy Sharon with CTV News with more.
It could be one of Canada's most important bargaining chips, but is the government willing to use it?
What I can tell you is everything is on the table.
Foreign Affairs Minister Mélanie Joly had that to say when asked if the government is prepared to cut off energy exports south of the border, a step the minister wouldn't rule out in the face of Trump's 25% tariff threat.
For those who are watching us right now, it is important to understand that the threat is real and we're acting on it. And that's why I'm calling every political leader in this country to be on board, because this is not time for division.
CTV News has confirmed Canadian officials are narrowing a list of American products that could be targeted with retaliatory tariffs. And Joly says diplomatic efforts with U.S. counterparts are ongoing, but this trade expert says Canada needs a measured response.
Subtle. You can't threaten, but you can certainly point out things that are obvious that might get overlooked in the rush to policy in the U.S.
In an interview with MSNBC that aired in full today, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says Canada is ready to respond.
As we did last time, we are ready to respond with tariffs as necessary.
Alberta is taking their own diplomatic approach too. Premier Danielle Smith met with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago this weekend, where she says she had a friendly and constructive conversation, highlighted the U.S.-Canadian energy relationship and how hundreds of thousands of American jobs are supported by energy exports from Alberta. Premier Smith adding she'll do everything she can to further Alberta's and Canada's interests.
We're going to face tariffs. It's a question of how long, and Daniel Smith's doing an excellent job to make sure that period of time is as short as possible.
Coming up next, we get a local snow update for the Northwest Regional Mountains. Welcome back. Although it's been somewhat of a slow start to the winter season, both ski hills in the Northwest are now fully operational as we get into a new year of skiing. Once again, here's Jaylee Matthews.
At Shames Mountain, manager Christian Tebarge said in a statement that this season's weather has been unpredictable, with freezing levels not necessarily cooperating. However, that didn't stop the mountain from welcoming the most guests they've ever counted at the ski hill for their Sunday, January 5th Multicultural Day, which featured $2 tubing and 50% off lessons. A record 1,031 guests visited the mountain that day. However, heavy rains last week resulted in the hill closing for the day on Friday, January 9th, which allowed the operations team to repair the slopes and open in time for the weekend. The snow base at Shames is now sitting at 49 centimeters at the lodge and 115 centimeters at the bottom of the T-bar. The mountain is generally open Thursday through Sunday, and this coming weekend they'll be hosting mini races for kids 10 and under. On Hudson Bay Mountain, they've got a 90 centimeter mid-mountain base depth and 115 centimeter alpine base depth, with 284 centimeters of total accumulated snow. Hudson Bay Mountain is operational Wednesday through Sunday. Back to you, Damien.
On to another weather story. California continues to be in the middle of flames, and Canadian support has been on its way to help down south. Kathy Lee has more from CTV.
The fire danger level critical for much of Southern California. Of the 6 wildfires that broke out, 4 are still active, including the Pacific Palisades fire, now expanding in other directions. All that's left of many neighborhoods, haunting echoes of what once was. This was the Weber family's home. This is it now. They learned of their loss on TV.
The news announcer at the time said, so if you look behind me, all the houses are gone. You know, we saw it going. I mean, it was horrible.
More than 150,000 people in LA County are under evacuation orders, some lined up at this recovery center.
Lots of tears, anger. We're going through the stages of grief.
Firefighters report making progress battling the blazes, but the forecast calls for the powerful Santa Ana winds to return.
These winds, combined with low relative humidities and low fuel moistures, will keep the fire threat in Los Angeles County very high.
Of the thousands of firefighters already on the ground and in the air, dozens arrived from Mexico to help today. Canada also confirming 60 firefighters from Alberta and BC will be deployed as soon as Monday, with more resources to send in the days ahead. Quebec has sent 2 Super Scooper planes, one temporarily grounded after an unauthorized drone collided with it. The FBI releasing these photos of the damage and saying they're now investigating.
We have equipment that can detect the drones in the air, but also we work backwards to identify the actual operator.
Aid not just coming for the firefight. This charity in Calgary sent 800 pounds of supplies to LA for people's 4-legged family members. The generosity of others has lifted those experiencing the worst. And now each day the focus is on the future.
We love our community, and everyone wants to come back.
Though coming back may take several years. Kathy Lee, CTV News, Calgary.
And now we turn our attention to tonight's weather forecast and the week ahead. For tonight's forecast in the Prince Rupert area, there should be some heavy rain with about 30 to 40 millimeters in total. Winds should be coming from the southeast at 40 kilometers per hour, increasing to 90 over the coastal sections, and there should be a steady temperature near 8 degrees. Terrace and Kitimat should see periods of rain with winds at 30 kilometers per hour and a temperature at 5 degrees. The Bulkley Valley should have cloudy circumstances with a 30% chance of flurries. Lighter winds at 20 kilometers per hour with a rising temperature at +1 by the morning, but with a -8 rating with the wind chill overnight. Moving on to your weekly weather forecast, the coast should see 3 days of rain with higher temperatures, followed by a drop, but some sunny weather in there as well. And the low will be -8 on Friday and Saturday night, and the high will be +8 degrees in the next 2 days. Terrace and Kitimat should have a similar pattern, but with the change arriving on Thursday with an option for snow and or rain that day, expect it to start clearing up on Thursday night, followed by colder temperatures as we head into the weekend. The low will be -10 on Friday and Saturday night, and the high will be 8 degrees tomorrow. The Bulkley Valley is seeing some warmer weather as of late as well, with some potential flurries over the next couple of days. But Thursday we'll see a steep drop from +3 to -12, followed by cloudy conditions for the next couple of days. The low will be a -18 on Friday night, and the high will be 5 degrees tomorrow. And now on to your Northwest Roadside Report. For more updates, make sure to check out drybc.ca. Highway 16 has fog patches, bridge maintenance, utility work in Vanderhoof and in Prince George, road maintenance near Dunster and slippery sections. Highway 37 has slippery sections and compact ice between Mesiaden Junction and Belle 2. Highway 37A has compact ice. Highway 118 has slippery sections. The Nishka Highway has slippery sections, and Telegraph Creek Road has slippery sections. These are what the cameras were looking at around the Northwest. Still to come, how referees are finding solutions to keep young officials in the game of hockey. Welcome back. With a shortage of referees around the country, alternative strides have been made to avoid abuse of officials from coaches, players, and fans. Allison Bamford has more on this story in Saskatoon.
Hockey coaches and hockey parents, you need to do better.
An Instagram plea viewed more than 1 million times. This Alberta hockey referee has had enough.
Think about what you're doing when you're yelling at a 12 or 13-year-old kid.
Surveys suggest verbal abuse is the #1 reason refs quit in any sport. Dave Cadoon says the yelling this season is particularly bad, especially towards young refs.
When they get yelled at, they start second-guessing themselves. Their confidence starts to drop. And when it comes down to instances such as that, where are they going to learn if they don't make mistakes?
These Saskatoon teenagers started reffing for the money and love of the game. But even working in a U11 league, some games like this one can end with yelling from coaches and harassment from players.
Well, it's pretty stressful because we're just kids and we're trying our best out there.
Saskatchewan recently joined provinces like Ontario, Quebec, and Nova Scotia, adopting a green armband policy. The color identifies youth officials with zero tolerance for abuse. Some refs say it's working.
It's not very often after they installed the green armband.
It's been a lot different. Coaches are not yelling, they're just talking to you.
It's an added layer of protection on the ice and a way to keep refs in the game.
We're trying to retain these young kids. Most officials start at 12, age 12, which is a great age, but they quit after the first or second year.
The puck can't drop without referees, and post-pandemic, Hockey Canada saw the number of officials slashed in half. But on the ice here, there's promise, with Saskatoon minor hockey seeing improvement with ref retention. It comes with hope that kinder actions can help grow the number of officials across all sports. Allison Bamford, CTV News, Saskatoon.
Now, 1 week into Justin Trudeau announcing his resignation as Prime Minister, a number of Indigenous people are now relieved that the Prime Minister is 8 weeks away from resigning. Alex Karpa has more in Winnipeg.
When Vivian Ketchum first met the Prime Minister in 2015, she was happy. And now that he's resigned?
Sense of relief. Don't let the door close behind you too soon. It's like, oh, kudos, yes, he's leaving.
Last summer, the federal government cut funding for searches of unmarked graves at former residential school sites, a cut she took personally.
The healing process is ongoing. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes years.
Trudeau made Indigenous relations a top priority during his time in office. Addressing the Assembly of First Nations, he promised a strong relationship. In 2015, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission released its final report, with Trudeau committing to all 94 calls to action.
There is a lot of calls to action that were completed. There's a lot more that are left undone. And certainly we're going up to the Truth and Reconciliations Commission 10 years next December. And I think at that point we look and say, how far have we come as a country? How far do we need to go?
Chief Woodhouse Nepenak says Trudeau has done more for Indigenous people than any other Canadian leader. Under Trudeau, the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls released its final report with a commitment to a national action plan. Then the first National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, now observed annually, honors the survivors.
Progress definitely has been made. Much more progress has been made under this Prime Minister than any other previous Prime Minister. But again, that's a very low bar to go by.
Proroguing Parliament killed some key bills, including a bill providing clean drinking water to First Nations.
Removing Justin Trudeau is only creating another situation where we have to start all over again. And so that is very concerning for survivors and for Indigenous communities in general.
Child and family issues and poor housing conditions top the list of concerns for many of the advocates I spoke with, and are hoping the next Prime Minister can do something about it. Alex Karpa, CTV News, Winnipeg.
Now we turn our attention to the stock market, where we have a mix of everything today. The Canadian dollar is up 0.5 of a penny. The price of gold is down $36.40. Oil is up $1.55. And natural gas is down 6 cents, and aluminum is up $58. In Toronto, the TSX is down 231 points. The Venture Index is down 7.65. In New York, the Dow Jones is up 358, and NASDAQ is down 73.5. Still ahead, how a Canadian warship has now received support from a global superpower. Welcome back to our final segment. The South China Sea, which is a global shipping route that Canadians count on, has been forced into chaos with China near the Philippines, Taiwan, and across that region. CTV's Adrian Gobriel has embedded with the crew on board a Canadian warship, and they're now receiving support from a global superpower.
In these troubled waters, for months, territorial disputes have been escalated, with clashes in the South China Sea between coast guards from the Philippines and China. For the last week, the Royal Canadian Navy has been shadowed by multiple Chinese warships through the East and South China Sea. Previously classified, CTV News can now share that the USS Higgins has joined HMCS Ottawa on this deployment as part of Operation Horizon, to promote rules-based order in the Indo-Pacific.
Sir, welcome aboard. Good to be on board.
U.S. Navy Commander James Billings, the second in charge of USS Higgins, sat down with CTV News to discuss the value of collaborating with Canada.
Working together, proving this interchangeability is one step closer to just being able to plug and play should a conflict arise.
Conflict readiness includes collecting intel while at sea. Enter the Canadian Air Force Cyclone helicopter, call sign Griffin. CTV News was given the opportunity to accompany the crew on an operation in the South China Sea.
The Royal Canadian Air
Air Force crew here on board Griffin are using radar and sonar technology to scan the sea below for any submarines and any warships that may be ahead to ensure safe passage for HMCS Ottawa. Now, anything can really happen in this airspace. We're currently near a spot called Fiery Cross. It used to be a reef, and the Chinese built an artificial island on top, complete with an airbase, combat aircraft, and mobile missile launchers. During our deployment, as the Air Force traveled closer to Fiery Cross, a Chinese warship tracking below made this call over marine radio back to HMCS Ottawa.
Canadian warship 341. This is Chinese Navy warship 571. Your hello is proceeding to our island for avoid misunderstanding. Auto course and keep away from our island.
The Canadian Air Force pilots followed international regulations, staying a minimum of 22 kilometers away from the Chinese base at sea, though following airspace regulations didn't prevent a dangerous event from taking place during a similar deployment in October 2023.
We began to have to go lower and lower in the air as the Chinese jets came lower and lower above our aircraft.
Captain Theodore Yan, a Canadian Air Combat Systems officer, was part of the crew on board a Cyclone in October 2023 when a Chinese fighter jet intercepted them in international airspace, firing flares in their direction.
I did look out of the cockpit windshield and see the flares come out in front of us. The thought that if one of those flares had actually collided with us or gone into one of our engines, it could have been a really bad day.
And for our final story of the day, it's about the startup of coffee shops and when you should be consuming these caffeinated beverages. Here's Paul Hollingsworth of CTV News.
At this Halifax coffee shop, there is non-stop demand for caffeine. It's an all-encompassing operation. In the back room, coffee beans are roasted and prepared for brewing. Business is thriving.
I think there will never be a slump in the coffee business.
This customer is a daily regular.
I tend to hopefully have two.
Based on previous research, coffee consumption with moderation can lead to better heart health and a longer life. But a new study shows those health benefits depend on the actual time of day when you enjoy your blast of coffee. According to the European Heart Journal, drinking coffee only in the morning was associated with a 16% lower risk of premature death from any cause, and a 31% lower risk of dying from cardiovascular disease. This customer is a serious coffee drinker.
It's equivalent to maybe 6 or 7 cups of drip coffee.
When told the study also found that much coffee could be bad for his health, he was unmoved.
You should be good to drink 6 or 7 cups a day.
One takeaway from the study: if you're unsure if you are drinking too much coffee, examine your sleep patterns. Too much caffeine often disrupts sleep. Chronic poor sleeping habits can lead to dementia, diabetes, obesity, and cancer. Rule number 1 for this customer: he shuts down his coffee drinking by midday.
I just know if I have one late at night, I'm probably going to be up for a bit.
Cafe owner Lara Cusson says there are time slots when her shop is at its busiest.
First thing in the morning, mid-morning, and mid-afternoon.
Which means they may not know it, but many of her customers are likely not damaging their health based on when they drink coffee. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
And that will be all for tonight's cast. Thank you very much for tuning in, and good night.